Hey guys, today we're going to be doing a Blackout poem. So the supplies that you're going to need today are a paper that your Panther teacher is going to give you, a pencil with a good eraser on it, markers for the very end, or colored pencils or crayons, whatever you have. You don't have to use these if you don't want them. And then some kind of Sharpie. A thin tip one is really helpful for these. So really thin. Or you can just have a regular Sharpie size, or you can have a really thick Sharpie size, which is great for the Blackout kind of poetry. So 3 different kinds of Sharpies that you can have potentially. Panther teacher should have these 2 kinds. We do not have the thin tip one, so if you have them, wonderful. All right, the next thing you're going to do is scan your page. So you want to read through the entire page. Just scan through each paragraph if you can. And you want to try to find a word that stands out to you, one that means something to you. Maybe it's something that's your favorite item of some kind. Maybe it's something that brings you a memory that's a happy memory or even a sad memory. But try to find a word that you think is your anchor word, we're going to call this. And then I want you to circle it. So I have found mine. I'm going to circle it here quick. So the word I found is peony. And that is a kind of flower. So that is my anchor word. All right, the next step that I'm going to do, now that I found my anchor word, peony, which is a flower, I am going to go through and find other words that are related to it or that I think would go well with that specific word. And I'm going to try to make a kind of poem out of it. All right, now I've gone through and I reread the first page here, trying to find words that go along with my anchor word. So some of the words I have are keep, all morning, lemonade, fine, gardened, dress, crown, air, picking, treasures. Just because I circled these words does not mean I have to use them in my Blackout poem though. The next thing I'm going to do is take a piece of paper and I'm going to write down the words that I circled in order. Okay, so I wrote down the words in order how they showed up on the page. So I have keep, all, morning, lemonade, fine, gardened, peony, crown, dress, air, picking, and treasures. Now I need to go through and think to myself, do I like all of these words to use in a poem? So I'm going to say them like I would say them in a poem. Keep, all morning, lemonade, fine, gardened, peony, crown, dress, air, picking, treasures. Don't really like it. So I'm going to go through and either keep some words or cross out words that I do not want to have in my final poem. I'm going to do that right now. All right, here are the words that I decided to keep. Keep, all, fine, gardened, peony, crown, picking, and treasures. Now I'm going to go back on my original page here and I'm going to erase the circles of the ones that I do not want to keep. All right, some of the words have been erased. So as you can see, morning has been erased, lemonade has been erased, dress has been erased, and air has been erased. Those I'm not going to use anymore, and I kept all my other ones circled. If I'm happy with the way my poem sounds after the erases, then I'm just going to keep them the way it is. If I'm still unsure about it, now I'm going to go through and see if I can find any other words in my story that I can circle that would make it sound better between the other words. So I'm going to do that now because I'm not quite happy with how it is so far. All right, so the only thing I did is I added by. So my poem is going to now sound like keep, all, fine, gardened, peony, crown, by picking, treasures. So that is going to be my final Blackout poem. Now what I'm going to do is take my fine tipped Sharpie and I am going to go around and outline each of the words that I've circled with my Sharpie. I'm going to do that right now. All right, the reason I used a fine tipped Sharpie was because it doesn't bleed through the page into the other letters. You'll notice I left a lot of room when I'm outlining my words so that if my marker bleeds into any of the letters, it doesn't touch the words that I've circled. Sometimes it might bleed through, and maybe if I got too close to the B, it might bleed through and make it not look like a B anymore. And then it kind of ruins your entire poem if it bleeds through. So you need to be very, very careful when you're outlining today to not bleed through and leave a lot of space over your words. That way we're able to tell what you're still trying to say. At this point, you should be thinking, do you want to add a picture to your words? Anything that might go with your poem at some point. I'm going to add a peony because that was my anchor word, and I might even add like a garden of peonies to mine. You don't have to add a picture if you do not want to. I'll show you an example of one here quick. Here's an example of one a student in the past has done. They did not add a picture, and they just blacked out the entire poem, so just their words were showing. Here's an example of where someone blacked out their word, and then it was really hard to read, so they had to actually write over what they blacked out. Here's another example right here. You do not want yours to look like that because it makes it very hard to read what you're trying to say. So again, please be careful when you go to black out your words that you don't accidentally erase some of them. All right, there's my kind of picture of my flower. Now I am going to go through and black out everything else around it that I'm not going to be using. And then I'm going to show you what that looks like when I'm done. All right, so there I colored my flower. I left everything else undone so far. Now the next thing I need to do is take either one of my Sharpies. Take either the smaller Sharpie or the larger Sharpie, whichever one you feel more comfortable using. And I'm now going to black out all of the other words that are not in the flower that I'm going to be using. So I'll show you an example here. So since I'm not using these, I'm just going to come through and start blacking out everything that I'm not using above the flower. And I'll do that around the entire flower. So all this down here is going to be blacked out. So I'll show you what that looks like here in a second.